Good morning. I think what I'm going to discuss today about the social dimensions in the spatial analytics. But you know, like most of you, I'm with the background of the geospatial science and technology. So mostly for the last 2.5 decades, I've used the GIS, geospatial, and the usage of it in the context of natural resource management. But things changed, like when I took up as a head of this program in DST, which is called Science for Equity, Empowerment and Development, SEED program, which is basically science and society. It was started in around 70s in DST, and then now it is known as Science and Society. What we are trying to do is find the science-led solutions in development and location-specific appropriate technology for creation of sustainable livelihoods, primarily for the communities. I think there is I found a representative of the MS Swaminathan group, we work with them very closely. And in order to ultimately to empower the community for inclusive development in sustainable manner. In DST, I look after 3 programs. One is the NRDMS, Natural Resource Data Management System, which is related to the geospatial technologies usage for the local level planning, and the SEED, which is for the usage of technology for the societal development, and the other is all the state S&T councils. So with my experience of the geospatial technology, when I took over, I was thinking that we generally, in the context of this geospatial technology, we use it, you develop applications, and then we try to find out that how it can fit into in the context of the society. So we really do not look it from the societal point of view or the social science point of view, what are the spatial aspects of that and how technology needs to be fitted into it. So thinking that, I just did a little bit of the research and find out that the definition of the spatial analysis here that all of you are doing in the data, which has the location or distance between object, which is taken into considerations. And actually, if you look into spatial analysis in the social science, because today's my discussions will be mostly, I don't know, any one of you are from social science background? Okay, so mostly from the natural sciences you are. So I'm going to discuss with you something which I'm not going to discuss with around in my programs or what the programs can do. Whatever little I've understood that how the GIS or the geospatial should go, in that directions I will try to discuss with you. Any feedback from you is the welcome, because at the end what we are trying to do is to develop a national framework in which the societal, our social science can be integrated with the geospatial science. Because the geospatial science and technology by nature is a technology, it is a technology push. But social science gives you the real, the reality on the field. So there is today's world, there is a requirement of the amalgamations of these two. So if you see, the spatial analysis in social science has 2 views. One is a technology view, all of us, whatever do, in the context of a point, line, or the polygon, which is raster and the vectors. So there are 3 techniques which are being used for mainly the visualizations. Most of you uses determine it exhibits the spatial autocorrelations. It's basically the 2 the objects, what are the relations between them, and the spatial relationships, how in geospatially they are related. And there is a sociological view, that sociological view is almost under research for the last 3 decades. So I would like to share with you, and then can find it out how we can combine them together. This is a simple visualizations in the context of social science. It can be used for residential segregations, urban form, electoral geography or ethnic politics. On the right hand side, you see one of the examples of the latest electoral the results, how we can visualize it. Now then, coming into the spatial autocorrelations, actually this is the relationship between it detects the unusual concentrations or non-randomness of events in space and time. So there are two types of the, the autocorrelations there. Like, let us just revise the basics of statistics of the, the correlations and the regressions. Correlation is a relationship between the two objects when you do, and regression is when they are a dependent variable and the non-dependent variable, the impact of one on the others. So the autocorrelation, it detects basically the unusual concentrations and events. So there are two methods, as I've told, that the global clustering, which is being determined by the Moran's I, which is developed by Patrick Alfred Pierce Moran in 1950. It examines where the nearby areas have similar or dissimilar attributes overall. If you take only one variable, like suppose you take that whether the obesity in one area and the other areas populations are, then you use this, the formula as you see here, where n, as you see, is the total number of the observations, which can be point or polygons. If it is a, the obesity data, it will be point, and if it is a polygon, if you take the other type of parameters, then I and j represents different locations, which is basically the latitude, longitude, and xi and xj are the values of the variables in the ith and the jth location, and x is the mean of the variables. So then wij is a measure of the spatial proximity of the pair I and j, the locations on that. So if it is a poverty data at location I and the poverty data at the location j, the value of Moran's I typically, it falls between -1 and the +1. -1 means there is a negative autocorrelation, which implies that the nearby locations tend to have a dissimilar values. So in other ways, there is an inherent, like, the difference in the spatiality in that. So therefore, they say the autocorrelations, and +1 means positive autocorrelation, indicates the similar value tended to occur in same area. In the right hand side, you are saying that there is a study in Louisiana, it took place, about the obesity of the nearby counties, and it shows the, the distributions here. So as you see here, like, this shows that these are clusters, these are dispersed, and this shows that they are random. So the most of the this obesity data is random, but in some of the counties it shows that they are clustered. So this is the first stage of starting the spatial analysis. Then there is another way of looking into is the local clustering, which is the local indicators for the spatial associations, and they detect the local clusters. Here as you see that the zi is the deviations from the mean value, and the wij is the spatial weight. You assign a spatial weight to it, and the positive value indicates that there is a high value surrounded by the this is, as you see here, this is the same obesity study here. You see here in all the counties, the high values are surrounded by the high values, and the negative, or there is a low value surrounded by the low value. As you see, the low clusters here, these are the clusters. So this gives in the spatial analytics, this gives a tool like where you can analyze. Generally in GIS, what we do in visually we clusters, but then what are the reasons of that? That becomes the social science, and there is the relationship in this that we can bring into it. Generally in our country, there are not many this type of studies. So that's the reason I just want to share with you. And after you do it, this the local clustering, then we can see both the examples. In the earlier examples, we saw there is a strong evidence of autocorrelation. There is a spatial relationship of that. After this, what we do, that next step, we have to attempt that how this spatial autocorrelation structure is in the actual analysis. In the actual analysis here, we do the geographically weighted regression model, which is a localized multivariate regression that allows the parameter of the regression model to change locally. As I already discussed, the regression model means when we find that how y, a dependent variable, changes with this x, which is the independent variable. Here the beta value, it refers to the estimated regression coefficient, which are location variant, and xi and 1, like this are refers to the dependent explanatory or the independent variables at the location I, this values as it changes. the spatial variability of an estimated local regression coefficient, because local regression coefficient gives you the spatiality of your data to determine whether the underlying process exhibits the spatial correlation. So the geographical weighted regression model, which is first you have to calibrate it. You can calibrate it by a geographically weighted matrix WI, which you see here. This is, you can do it by a the neighboring relationship by a matrix where the WIN is the impact between the position 1 I and the 1 and the position 0. So the larger this WIN value, the closer the geospatially the data points are, stronger the impact they have on each other. So this is another examples where you can use the social data and can find out that how the spatially they are located. There is another technology in the last point is the spatial analysis with the multi-level models. Here, as you see, this is, and again, I'm not going into the details. Whenever we plot this data of the schools, and these are in the different poverty, like in the back here, this data are the county poverty ratio, and these are the school achievement ratio. What we see that there is a great variation in the state with regard to the distributions of the poverty, with the greatest occurring in the northeast. Here is the poverty in mostly poor areas, and here you see the worst performing the schools are there. Then the high performing schools are spread across the state, but in many areas there are concentrations of the poor performing schools also. So the map shows that many schools are isolated and also remotely located. The spatial techniques, like which I have already shared with you, and there are some more which I'm not discussing, have the potential to explore the potential of location to impact the school processes and the outcome. For example, do the schools located in the middle of a high poverty area experience the greatest difficulty attracting qualified teachers than those located on the borders? Generally, what we do that in currently with the GIS, we do through querying process. But at the back of we cannot link that with our socioeconomic data. So this is a way like where you can link the socioeconomic data along with your the geospatial data what we collect. So this is the technological view of the geospatial analysis in the social science. Then there is a big discussions in the social science about the meaning of the space, which mostly the European the researchers, they started Harvey, Focal, Levray. So these are some names in the, if you are a student of the social science and related to the space, you will know about Doran Massey, whose definitions of the space is to a certain extent accepted and worked further on, says that space is a social construct. Space doesn't exist as such, like whether it is a built up space or whether it is a non-used space, it is all a result of a social process. The social is located in the space, that is spatially the society is as constructed. Social space is always dynamic. It is not, like in our natural science, we consider it as the land use change takes place in each of 5 years. In 5 years, like, NRSA map it. But in a societal construct, it is very dynamic. It changes very dynamically. And space is also about power, both real and the symbolic. Social space might consist of contradictory, even conflictual spaces. It is never one space, but many spaces. So this was the view of Massey, which is around 94 to 2005. This definitions emanates. Then there was another group of the researchers in Germany. They are working on the space, and they say that social spaces are regarded as relational orders of animals and social goods that are aggregated at a common place. So according to them, any social space is basically, it isn't, any space is society driven, because the society, as take a case of a big watershed. Generally let's see, the more of the people will lie wherever the more waters are there. And wherever there is a less water, the people, there will be less people. So even in the context of an watershed delineations, which we do regularly, if you want to see related to the society, you have to think often the social space, why people are doing that. Then social spaces are relations between coincidental plural placements. That means it forms between the objects and therefore is an embodiment of the coincidences. Actually, these definitions of the social, this definition of the social space, initially there was some, very rudimentary ideas were given by Dieter Beck, which was in 1984. He talked about that as a child grows up, how the space, it covers. The first is the ecological center concept, which describes the family and the home of a child, where children find first more important. So if you, though he has given the example in the context of child, in the context of a society, you will see that all of us follows to a certain extent these, the centers. First, we start our life in a small area, then we go in a bigger area, and we means any society. Then there is a nearer ecological environment, which describes the closer neighborhood that enables the child to find first relationship outside the family. That means local village or local quarter. Then the child goes into the ecological sectors, which is basically school, playground, shop, swimming pool. They require certain kind of a role behavior. It gets defined. Then the ecological periphery, that where it goes in more for the other, the economic or the other social activities. So then during that time, Helga Zier, she worked on this concept of Dieter Beck, but told that with development, the society doesn't behave in this concentric, the spheres, because a person, nearest zones are no longer experienced in concentric spatial arrangement, but rather in segregated world. These islands lie within a greater space, only crossed but not fully experienced. They are now a child without going into the neighborhood may go to the school, but he or she may not experience this entire journey. So this shows that what is the impact of the technological, the development on the societal behavior. So then there was in the context of, there are a lot of work on the context of how to map this social space. Because, watershed is a defined area because it follows the contour. So it follows the, there is a, the logic behind that. But societal space is a more often, the assumptions. It is to a certain extent imaginary. So how do you map that? So Foucault in 1984, he told that there are different spaces, like either there is a public-private space, like which it's a market, that there is a family place, like which is your house, or cultural, like theater or leisure works. These places are either, he gave a concept of utopia, which is there is no real place or unreal space, or heterotopia, that is the counter side. So according to him, a mirror is an example of both the utopia and heterotopia. In a mirror, you can see your, the image, but mirror itself also a place itself. So from the societal point of view, the museums and libraries, you don't live there, but your life gets reflected and curated there. So these are called, the heterotopia. Then Lefebvre, like in 1991, he gives that the spatial practice, where do you do the spatial practice in everyday life, like social activity, then representation of the space, like cartographers do the map, and then representational space, like which is the space which imaginations, and like clandestines and the underground spaces. Now in social science, the theory of whom is most accepted is Soja. Soja is in 1996, she built up based on the others' theories and gave a, as you say, in case of geospatial, it will be the case of the scale. So there is a first space in the real space, the urban built from the physical building that can be mapped. Then second space, which is imagined a representational space, how the space is perceived. Third space is, it combines the first and second space to create what Soja describes as a fully lived space. Like as I'm coming from my home to this place, I am imagining that this place or my working space, how it will be. So the third space is a combination of my home as well as this perceived space. So currently, whatever the improvement in this social space mapping has taken place is based on Soja's, the descriptions. where the social space is the experience of life in the first space, mediated to the second space, and combined to the third space itself. Then there is another form of that, like as you see that the social space come from local to the transnational, and from the research point of view, there is a material and objective conditions which is given by Dennett that this structure of social space can be measured. This is measurable by socio-structural data like socio-economical situation, habitat, family structures, education standards, and identification of the problems areas. Most of the data can be collected through a quantitative research perspective and the top-down perspective. This is basically what the government collects the data. So this is a top-down perspective, and there is a subjective perspective of the inhabitant and the service users. Service users, their social space are the life of them as public rooms that can be designed and acquired. Here the key focus is on the subjectivity and the qualitative dimensions of social space. Most of this phenomena can be experienced through a qualitative research. Here the bottom-up perspective. So basically the real persons, like the citizens or the community, that view can be taken from here. So that's the way, like now the cultural, political, economic, geographical part of the social space, it needs to be mapped with this, the parameters, the attitude, the action, the interventions, and the policies. So ultimately, if you see that why are we doing this spatial analytics? Why do we do the geospatial, the analysis? Anyone, like, from the point of view of the society, anyone answer from you, like why we are doing it? What do you feel? I think if you see, from the point of view of the society, we are trying to empower society through different technologies, like whether it is my mobile phone. This is a type of a technological empowerment. Similarly, from the geospatial technology, what we have not done yet, because it is a technology driven thing, we have only done the proof of concept of a technology. But what we haven't done really the thought of how it can become an empowerment. So as a result, today if you see in India, the geospatial technology is more than 3 decades. Still we are, struggling to bring the technology for the absorb or usage by the user, whether it is by the common people. To certain extent, Google Map is being used by the common people because it helps its social, the duties. But the majority of the cases, even if you see most of the organizations, certain extent some of the private organizations they use, but in the government organizations, the geospatial technology are not being used in their decisions making process and the flow yet. Because there are many DSSS, SDSSS, many data, but still not being used. So we have to look it from that why not it. So this there is like an idea of an empowerment of a space. The particular distributions of the resources or entitlements and how they are used. Like take a case of an forest. So forest is the distributed resources. But how a forest access can be done by tribal, forest officials or an outsider. These are very, the power dependent, and so that gives the vulnerability of a community based on their access. So these are the 3 things which determines the vulnerability of a space from the point of view of a society. It's its exposure, its capacity, how much I can access to that, and its potentiality of how much you can use it. So if you look it from the empowerment point of view, there are many definitions of the empowerment. The main empowering process is the perceptions and the demonstrations, the active, how much a psychological empowerment you can give to a person. Basically, generally in our society, people say that if you go to the tribal community, they are उनको तो ऐसे ही दे दो, like you give them a low level of the the technology, they will be happy. So that thinking needs to be changed with these of the technological the empowerment, and in that context the role of the the geospatial technology along with the societal study is to link these 3 axes of the sustainable development: the societal part, economic part, and the environment. Generally what we do, either we do this 2 or with this 2. Like the natural resource management people, they do this, try to do this 2, And basically the social and the economic people try to these two. We need to have an, the balance between all the three. And I will just, in that context, the important is the livelihood assets of the people. As you see from the point of view of the livelihood system, there are 5 capitals, like social capital, human capital, natural capital, physical, and the financial capital. These are the capitals. As you see here, many of them can be, like as you are a user of the geospatial, you can collect it spatially, like natural resources, you can collect spatially, physical resources. Some of the social capital we don't collect. Basically that is being given by the, again, sociologists, and what we are looking into how we can link them. So these are the socio-ecological systems for the sustainable livelihood. These are the natural processes, and these are the societal processes. And these, the knowledge, practice, institution, technology through which both the society and the nature, they interact to that. So this is in some of the examples what we studied in nearby Delhi. And as you see here, this is, if you're someone from Delhi, in the South Delhi, there is a place called Okhla. And at the periphery of that, you see there is a big slum which is called Trihut or Srikhand village. So here you see that this is Tekhand village. So as you see here, when you analyze, you will see that there are very few people who lives in this near Okhla, that is Sarita Bihar, Indra Kalyan Bihar, and Goyla Diary. As you go, that their income, like they increases more towards Sarita Bihar, and these places they decreases. But if you see, they are, the socioeconomic power asymmetry, the more people who are living in a small place are accessing or giving more influence to the resources in the, which is available in that particular city. So, like this study, what we haven't till yet been able to do it to link it with the societal, this space and, analyze it. So ultimately, by studying this, where are we going? Because if you see, this is the UNGGIM, the framework, as you know, like the Sustainable Development Goal is the currently the framework of development. And the Sustainable Development Goal, all of these 17 goals and 232 indicators, what they are trying to do, like they have a different, the level. When it comes from the international level, it's like I say, it is more often 35,000 feet view, like as you come on a the flight. You cannot see like really what is happening. The real thing happened at the 10-feet level. And that's the, that's the one of the examples, like the SDG indicators from India. Like just take a case of an hunger. That what we try to do, like again, this is at a national level we have made, but ultimately you can, you can plot it and can find its spatial distributions. But the reason for it, if you want to chart, again, we have to use those with those methodologies and to link it up with. So, what I propose at the end of this has been proposed by the good child, that there should be a framework for spatially integrated social science. So, what he talks about that the spatially integrated social science is, the first is you have to represent it as the spatial phenomena, So you have to represent the spatial phenomena, like all of us, like as you do it in using a GIS, represent the spatial phenomena. Then we have to do the spatial data analysis. This is, I think, most of the cases this is not being done in our cases. You then, after analysis, you visualize and communicate the spatial informations. Then you simulate the social system in a spatial temporal content, and then access to data. This is a case of as basically the spatial data infrastructure, which in many of the countries, like in Germany, they are working that how this spatial data infrastructure of the geospatial data can be integrated along with the social data. And I think this is the way in which in India we should work, because I've tried to find there are not many work which has been done from both the end and can linked it up, so that we till now what we have done is in applications of the geospatial is mostly like how I represent, how I do a very preliminary analysis through query systems, but not linking up it to the how the societal system is influencing this result and how the society is influenced by this result. So this is my plea that from the Department of Science and Technology as NRDMS program, we are going to start a program on these the socio-economic the social empowerment, the spatial social empowerment. So any of you, if you are interested to work with these both the geospatial as in the socials, please can contact me. This is my contact number. So any questions, any ideas, because this is nothing about a straightaway thing that what I presented. This is as I have understood. I have taken help of some of the global the literature available. Any ideas if you have, you're welcome to write, so that we can develop this the area of knowledge together. Any question, any comment?
Mapping of hospital educational institute comes under the social dimension.
So like there are two aspects. There is a physical infrastructure aspects, which is the way that we do, like but there is a social aspects, like where like if you look into the distributions of the hospitals and the patients coming from that, where from the patients are coming, why they are coming. So we have to look at it now to take the real spatial empowerment of the society, because we don't do that analysis that where they are coming, what is the socio-economic conditions, how it is related with that.
Economic condition data, that will be attribute data, that may not be the geospatial plan.
But that is the reason I am saying, like, there is a concept of now the social space. If you see if you take your attribute data itself, because currently for us it is attribute data, but in the attribute data we will find either the autocorrelations, because there is a spatial correlations between one cluster with the other clusters, or there is not a correlations, or there is a regressions, or so that needs to be that needs to be considered in your analysis. Currently what we don't do, we take it as an attribute data and just connect it with the spatial data and do the analysis. But you have to look into these autocorrelations, regressions along with the social space mapping, so that we understand that why people, like suppose you'll always see that in any hospital, especially the particular type of the disease, the patients will come from in particular, like take a case of a malaria, people will come from some particular area, like similarly from other these things also, like some of the communicable diseases will find like they are coming from particular processes. What's the reason of that? This is, and there are many other areas like we can use this. This one? Yeah. No, next is my inside. On the other way. This is.
We are talking about the vital statistics and other data.
Where?
Here.
Oh, here. Yeah.
Here
This.
you have got the population data and also vital statistics and.
This is, yes.
That one, yes.
Yes.
So within that data, what type of program you are doing from?
Currently, what we are doing is basically let me tell.
Because sensors have the data, they have collected that data, and
NSSO.
prepare the mapping and also analysis also.
So if you see the census data, what we do, we either take the data from Survey of India or NRSA data, and then the census data, what is the point data there in the GIS format, we link it up. But the census data, what you have here, like they collect in quite details. That data from the social point of view, we don't analyze. If you see that there are different clusters, what is their why they're the contiguous clusters, why they are showing the similar type of characteristics, why or not, and then linking them with this thing. So as a result, what is happening, we are only getting that the spatial, at the end of the day, it is a more often spatial visualizations, a very limited analysis. What I am saying that if you can integrate that with the social, the usage of the statistics, there are spatial statistics are there, there are another like socioeconomic, econometric statistics are there. So with that, if you can integrate it, actually this is the focus also from the UNGGIM. UNGGIM is saying that if you see the governance, any country's governance is mostly run by on the strength of its statistical data, not that much of the geospatial data. Geospatial data is used mainly for the land management and those things, but mostly it is statistical data. So how you can get more, the information of the statistical data, which is socially relevant and can link it up to address SDGs. So that's they're talking about it. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, have you done any study that correlates this obesity with aspects such as walkability, something like that?
No, what I'm saying. Therefore, first I told in our country, I found there is no study like that. This has been studied basically in US in Louisiana, and like US, the walkability is not a factor. So if you see actually, if you see here, it has a huge social difference in the US and in our country. Because here, in our country, even in the poor area, you will find there is a education as a, the ladder for social climbing. Many people are performing well. Like, one examples, if you take this year's Delhi government schools performance, is much better in comparisons to the private schools. But in US, that's not. It's a dampener. So that shows that if you don't consider this as in social differences in your analysis, you are missing something. Exactly what the question you asked, I just also, I couldn't get any data, any study, but I thought of the reasons what they are given here in US. It is different totally, and in our case it will be different.
I asked this because in my master thesis, I did a study on walkability for Bangalore.
Okay.
So I just was trying to explore that if there is any such studies already existing on obesity, it can be.
No, I tried to find it in India, it is not. Either it is they are doing the obesity, or other they are doing the geospatial part. Not the reasons of these two. Not linking this two. Sure. Because I'm we are going to start a particular program for this type of a thing. Because otherwise, like now the question is coming after 3.5 decades of proof of concept, then what? GIS has now become as a tool, everyone knows. Then what? How we can, bring the value to our societal, and it will be different. The one example is this. This analysis you cannot accept in the Indian context because the societal context are totally different. So actually that's the reason we are thinking of trying a program like where we are focusing on the geospatial science. If you say today, our geospatial, the entire ecosystem is based on a technology, a particular technology and its application. But a nation cannot build up unless you have your own technological strength and your own science strength, geospatial science. To a certain extent in mathematics, in physics they do, but that is never linked with the geospatial science community. So we are thinking of starting a geospatial science program along with this, our own technology program. And technology, geospatial, location-based technology in today's world is not only GIS. There is many technology beyond GIS, like to think of that. And also we have enough of applications. Now we have to think of solutions. And when you come at the solutions, you have to look into basically what is the workflow process of the beneficiary or the organizations for which you are talking about, and how you can put it in the context of that, the workflow process. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So we in the team we have tried to include social economic experts also, but while searching we found that the people who are not very expert on these things.
Yes.
But the only thing as you told they do practical research. See whether the hospitals are less.
So we do that pattern only, the physical pattern, not the socio-economic pattern. Why it is less?
And how we propose the land uses based on those things we are not very clear also.
Exactly.
And so we have a committee, we have a PMIO,
And
We do a community meeting or anything. Can we invite you as an expert?
oh, sure. I'm in Delhi. So, no, but it is more important, it is not me. You have to, strengthen the whole community. The socio-economic community needs to know this. And the geospatial community also needs to know the other side of the story. Then only, because what is your problem is the real problem. Because, even in in the case of urban planning, this is the problem. Because for us, the GIS or geospatial has become as a tool, not as a knowledge to develop our societal development. And this is the change process what we need to bring. So, if you don't have any, the questions, I will be really happy that with this type of a problem with that, if you can come, like I have found like 2 partners. So, any of you want to be partner, like we'll shortly have a, the program on this, like where we can take both the sides together and have a program. Because I really try to find out, there are 1 or 2 studies other than what I have shown in JNU, that study took place. But again, those people are also geospatial people. So they have gone up to that stage and then gone. Like this was for CSRD, JNU from that. So this is my email. I will be, yeah.
Sorry to say this, but to my knowledge, there are many studies which are related social aspects of.
Is it?
So, like with Indian Institute of Management and Space Application Center, ISRO, Ahmedabad, even they have done study with economy effect of climate change, and there are studies of pollution impact on human health, and there are studies of.
Are they published? Like, where in IGJS?
One paper is in atmospheric environment.
Okay.
So that is where Dr. B.K. Dutta, so earlier director of NRS, so currently is the director of IISB. So there are studies of impact of pollution on agriculture, that is especially the concentration of composite ozone on agriculture. So there are many studies.
No, but what you are saying is the impact of, pollutions in agriculture. There is many studies I know, like, because these are the 2 physical processes or the natural processes.
Like the carbon trading, as the government of India said, carbon trading.
Mm-hmm.
You must have heard. So that is because of climate change.
Mm-hmm.
Every industry has carbon cut emission.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a trade certification which is required for every industry to come out.
No, what you are talking about, these are all the physical and the natural processes. There are many impact studies that have been, that I am aware about. I couldn't find like what he is talking about, like, how obesity is impacted by, or what madam is talking about, like in the case of the urban planning, you divide it into different built up areas, but then why people come here, why the poverty concentration is more here. There is a social angle of that. I am talking about, not much work has done there, but I am aware about what you are talking is an impact of a natural process, a physical process, and the physical process has been done. Many of that I am aware of it.
This information always comes from attributes. How can you do the analysis part, spatial analysis here?
That is the point, no? Like, currently, as our knowledge says, that because it is in lot attributes, because as you see that in basically our NSSO or the others are connecting, or census is connecting the data, and we are linking it. But as I have discussed within the first 3-4 examples, there is an inherent pattern of that which is linked to the social aspects of that. Like in the case of women's safety, a space you need, like women's safety is a perceptions. You can only get an data of a particular event. You cannot get a data of the, we cannot get an attribute data on every person's mind. But that attribute of your, the incidence in a particular area and the physical area, what it happens, the poverty conditions of the people, this can be a independent and autocorrelations analysis can be done to find out the why and which are the points why it is happening there in a particular area.
Mental agony or this type of the psychological behavior, and how it can be do analysis, spatial analysis.
That-
Ultimately, it is a
No, there are many. Actually, when I was also thinking like you, like when I started reading. But when I read there in the psychological context, there are many this type of study that what they are trying to use this methodology and try to include it in the psychological, behavioral phases of the society, like of a society in very. But in our country, not much of the study has been done. But in US and Europe, lot of the studies have been done in that. They have validated. They have validated it. Obviously, without the validated, they cannot publish. They have validated. Yeah.
Sir, I have a question regarding social. We know that social studies is going on. From where will you get the data? Is that only the personality survey is related?
No, there are many different type of a methodology. I didn't discuss it. Actually, when I went into it, there are many different, like there are two types in sociology also. There are two types of sociology they do. Qualitative methodology, which is through the questionnaire, and there is a quantitative sociology, which in India, quantitative sociology is very weak. So that is another area like where we need to develop. Huh?
How reliable, like how we get the access for such that population is not from the
No. The currently the access what you have got it from the census. Like the. But we have to do a more focused project in that. You cannot like I was reading in US they have a this type of a sociological data repository, but we don't have. We don't have. So we have to do it. Start with a project mode and to go into the program like at a national level, and then. If we bring it like as TCPO people will come, like if in what we need probably to add some parameters and add certain analysis type of an analysis with the societal along with the current of the physical analysis what we do. But this is also I'm not totally aware about, because as I've told this is like I have also studying this in the last 2 years. So like my prescriptions may not be the ultimate, but what I am saying, there is a requirement in the country to propagate it. That is there.
Sir,
Yeah.
is it possible to add one more parameter with the census data, that spatial parameters, lat long or not?
Yeah, actually, their lat long is always there. Actually, if I didn't tell in details, because there is a methodology where this societal data you can merge with the lat long data, then it becomes spatially enabled. And that will depend upon what type of event you are looking into. How many societal data for what purpose you will merge together and link it up with the. So then you use this type of an autocorrelation, autoregressions. There are many econometric methods also of that. You use that. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
No, he is talking about that the data with the census, because census people they are collecting the data village wise or ward wise that have to be incorporated with their
Actually 20
statistic
and also XY latitude.
that thematic type of map and atlas they are also publishing. If you see the census website and there are so many atlases, or you may contact their Directorate of Census Operation each state capital, so you can get the data from there.
So currently what happened, after you tag, I get a bigger polygon. I understand that the poverty X is here, poverty Y is there. But I don't understand the reason of that.
For slum area, that is very difficult. Then okay, that data they have incorporated for that ward level.
And these things, yeah. And many places, actually in the 21 census, they are doing it in X and Y for each of the locations. That's the thing.
With the help of mobile.
Yes. But even if you if you analyze it and project it will be a bigger polygon. You understand that. That is the thing. It is a thematic mapping. After thematic mapping, what? That is my questions.
According to your question, you can analyze.
So currently our and this analysis is a more often qualitative. My understanding how I analyze. So how you can bring that societal models also whatever is going in there. That's the propositions I am bringing here. So that the advantage of the societal science, the analytics, what is happening, how you can integrate with the spatial analytics to strengthen it for the societal empowerment. That's the point what I am bringing. Okay, thank you very much, and for listening and bearing with me. And any ideas, because as I told, like, this is just an evolution. Because after working in 3.5 years in the geospatial, I just thought that what's next? How long we can go on just developing applications and try to find home to fit. So this is probably like directions what we can do, and your participations and partnerships in this will be really appreciated by the DST. Thank you.